What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Soapbox Hustle Podcast. I am James Barnes.
I'm Janita Blue.
We got a very special guest for you today. We have Camille Heard in the building, the Director of High Growth Services at JumpStart Incorporated. Everybody clap it up. So, man, this has been...
founder of Tastemakers.
Oh, yeah, we can't forget about the entities that you actually started from scratch as well. So, Tastemakers. Anything else that we missing out, Camille?
FELOH. Yep.
Okay. Camille has been doing some great things in the community, the great things on behalf of JumpStart. But doing my research, right, I found it very interesting that your background is in the medical field. You went to the University of Pennsylvania, correct?
Yep.
Okay, can you tell us about how you got into the medical and what prompted the transition to the business arena?
Absolutely. So, okay, going all the way back to my days in undergrad. So, like a lot of people, fresh out of high school, you might think you know what you want to do. You might have some preconceived ideas on what, maybe your parents or society or whatever success could look like.
Absolutely.
And so, for me, growing up here, I went to a prep school. Okay. So I did go to a prep school. So I was
here in
Cleveland.
Okay.
So I got hit by all kinds of success looks like being a doctor, a lawyer, and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And so, not to say that was imposed on me from, my direct community, like my parents, but I was just really steeped and incubated in, so you gonna be a doctor or not?
Right. That's either this is success or
yeah.
No middle area, right? Either you a doctor or you a failure.
Yeah. And so, that's these self-imposed ideas that I had. So I went into undergrad thinking I guess I'm gonna just be pre-med because I love science and I'm pretty good at math. And when I tell you, going to Penn definitely humbled me in so many ways, in that everybody's smart. that curve that they be grading on, it hits different.
You need to go to a public school, but once you hit the real world, you realize I'm behind just a bit.
Well, yeah. So it was just going through that route / allowing myself to just open myself up to what I'm truly interested in. I got to a place in my student life where I'm I don't really want to pursue that route. Gotcha. But at the same time, I was still very much interested into, math, sciences, how it affects people and populations. And so I pivoted and ended up studying medical anthropology, which is essentially the study of people, populations, and how health affects that. Again, still not knowing what I really wanted to do. Ended up going to grad school because that's what students do when they don't know what to do, just go back to school. And so,
keep learning.
Right, exactly. And so I pursued a master's in public health, thinking that, okay, I've already invested time in this space and in this field, but behind the scenes, I started to get that entrepreneurial itch.
Yep.
So in grad school, I started to see how different industries were rapidly changing. And one that really fascinated me, because at the same time, I was going through my natural hair growth journey and renaissance.
Right.
Yes. And it was, the space of beauty and wellness. And I remember it was back in 2014, so about 11 years ago. You could just buy stuff on the internet, and you didn't have to go to CVS or Walgreens or Walmart or Target or wherever to get skincare, hair care, vitamins or whatever. And so I started seeing all of these rising brands go viral, and I'm like, hey, there's something here. And then at the same time, we started to see the rise of influencers and how they were democratizing, how people were finding out about different brands. And so just kind of sat and observed and watched this industry and played with the ideas of, what would it look like to create value in this space? Mm-hmm. And what would it look like to take my ideas seriously? And so...
So were you a founder in this space, or were you looking to elevate other brands?
Both.
Okay.
So the pivot of me, going from healthcare into the business was, fast forward a couple of years after just seeing all these observations, I was in my first and last corporate job and really not happy in the role that I was in, which allowed me to really think about what it would feel like to believe in myself and just take my ideas seriously. And so the idea that myself and my co-founder kept coming back to was, if we can create a strong community for these rising consumer brands to be able to tap in, we create value for them. And if we can support these brands through building a strong community, we can also create value for this community by getting them in front of, different brands that they truly want to support. And so that's how my startup FELOH came to be.
Got you. So the passion was in the beauty industry, correct? So you wanted to take these brands, advertise it to the community, but also help the businesses grow the brands behind the scene.
Absolutely.
So first off, what was the end goal in the medical world, right? Where did you see yourself ending up? Because we got a future doctor sitting here turned entrepreneur.
Actually,
we got to know what the transition.
That's so wild. Like, I actually got into a PhD program along this journey, at Case.
Wow.
Yeah, I was about to be a
amazing.
whole PhD in
That's
epidemiology.
But we need people like you in that space as well.
Well,
right?
so, okay, this is where that journey, died. So, it didn't die, but it was like a real eye-opening, y'all, this is wild. So, I was in healthcare from the government affairs and public policy lens.
Almost like a lobbyist type of
100%.
Got you.
So, I was in the angle of the company I was working for in corporate, it was a Medicare, Medicaid insurance company, meaning that they get a whole bunch of money from the government to manage the services for vulnerable and elderly populations. My job in this organization was to understand the different legislative policies that were coming out of the federal government, the local governments, to tell our lobby team what it actually means and what would actually make sense for this organization. And so the lobbyists that I worked for that were internal were, you knew everyone's political affiliation. Right. We had the Democratic team, we had the Republican team, but this was also in Tampa, Florida around 2016.
Okay.
And so you started to really see, you just started to see stuff. When it comes to advocating for vulnerable populations, on top of the nuanced layers of how decisions are really made and how, people's personal, sentiments get infused in decisions for vulnerable and elderly populations. I just got to a point where I'm like, this is madness. And so for me, I'm like, if I was any more comfortable, I would have stayed longer, but I was not comfortable in being a part of that system, which allowed me to say, so what does entrepreneurship talk about?
You're like, we're taking a step away from this.
Yeah. Because you can still affect the same change, right? But you have more control over what you want to do. And that brings us to your role at JumpStart, right? What attracted you to this role? You pretty much explained what attracted you, right? Being able to prompt change, right, for underserved communities, underserved individuals. I know your role at JumpStart, you do with a lot of minority businesses, right? So in looking at the overall scope of the new, because you start off in the EIR role, correct?
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Yeah. So fast forwarding a couple of years, I ended up moving back to Cleveland to pursue, from Tampa, to pursue the startup full time. And in that period of time, there were a lot of learning curves that I personally was going through as it relates to venture capital, the startup world, navigating it, raising capital, all that stuff. And I had to really immerse myself in the startup, just all of the startup ecosystems, including, the ecosystem that's here in Northeast Ohio, which JumpStart is heavily a part of. And so I ended up connecting with my first EIR, Entrepreneur in Residence.
Can you explain what the EIR role is?
Yeah. So an EIR, an Entrepreneur in Residence, is a person that's typically an entrepreneur themselves or has a lot of background in entrepreneurship, that's hired within an organization to think like an entrepreneur and mentor and advise entrepreneurs.
So real quick, I call it entrepreneurship, right? So like with my organization, I encourage, right, the entrepreneurial mindset, but you still hold a position within the organization. So I think Google does a lot of things like that, right? So where they said a lot of the features that we use almost every day, right? The Gmails, that was a system of the culture that he built, right? Of saying, hey, yeah, you work here, but let's think like business owners. How can we continue to grow this thing and add value in other areas?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's like thinking like an innovator. Like
Absolutely.
how can you disrupt a whole industry, with an idea? And so I connected with JumpStart, and JumpStart connected me with an EIR that, we were like-minded. He was connecting me with, different connections, angel investors, different resources. And in that process, he was expanding me in a lot of different ways. How I ended up being at JumpStart was about 9 months after working with my first EIR at JumpStart, he ended up taking on a new role elsewhere. And JumpStart saw a lot of the momentum that I was able to garner for the startup fellow, and so they asked if I would be interested in serving as an EIR, and I'm like, what? To be able to connect with people and help them not make the same mistakes I did,
and still respect me as a business owner.
Yeah, exactly. So it just made a lot of sense. Yeah. I think from a cultural standpoint, when I think of what kind of allowed me to see myself in the space, it did take a lot of internal, I would say, belief that I feel like if I had external, I guess affirmation or earlier off, it would have unlocked something in me so much earlier. So I really think in middle school, culturally, to be able to have different programs that speak to, what entrepreneurship really means, what business operator versus business owner means, versus lifestyle business versus, like a entity that can, transfer in value. I feel like all of these concepts I was, unaware of until much later in the game. And now with the access to start anything and sell anything is just so low right now. I mean, you have literally 12 and 13-year-olds out here just making money.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, are they making something that can be sustained in value, or can they, this revenue that they're generating, how can that pour into, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just feel like,
how you put systems behind the
yes,
ideas.
right. And I feel like that just starts culturally at a younger age.
You step out to be an entrepreneur, you following this medical path, but then you put yourself out there and it's okay, when it starts to work, and then people, they see oh, this is actually working, and they start supporting you in that space. But I admire the fact that you started looking for angel investors early on, and then you found the right people and, followed that journey. For people who are ready to scale, ready to get that team, what would you recommend to them? And also, how did you build that community with Tastemakers? Because that's a big group of people in a creative space.
I would say when people are at a point when they're ready to grow and scale their operations or their team, I mean, you cannot underestimate the value of authentic and intentional networking. And I know that was definitely a skill I had to cultivate. And it was pulling teeth. I'm thinking of me 10, 12 years ago, networking in public with people I don't know. Oh my God, kill me! like, I'm just like, it is so cringe to think about, like I was stressed out. Like, my level of social anxiety was just unmatched.
I would
like,
never ever guess. You seem like such an extrovert,
well,
outgoing person, yeah.
See, and so a lot of people think I'm an extrovert. I'm really an introvert, and it took me a lot of internal, just ripping off the Band-Aid over and over and over again to just be out there. But it really, I would say, networking, connecting with people, finding ways that, or knowing the value that you have, and finding ways to share that value with others in a way where, you can build some exchange. And I think that, when you're getting to that point of growing and scaling that from a people standpoint, like, just always start with that. Like, start networking now. But then when it comes to thinking about how to really put the right structures and things in place, I think, plugging into the communities of people that have been there and done that, and also lateral networking or lateral, people that you're in the same, maybe in different industries, but in the same, I guess, level of, like, you good? You good? Because
check on your people.
Yeah, exactly.
Check on your entrepreneur friends.
Yes, yeah, and that community in itself can really, one, like, mentally and emotionally support you, but two, really might open you up to hacks and different, ways to, like, really sustainably build. And then, again, like, iron sharpens iron, diamonds cut diamonds. Mm-hmm. And so becoming more diligent about how you're, cultivating those interactions around you. And then that kind of leads into, some of the community building that I started with Tastemakers. And it was, originally started from, there's a lot of people doing a lot of dope things, and we don't know each other. Yeah, and it's like wild. And it's like, why? Why don't we know each other? And
the spirit of collaboration amongst Black and minority entrepreneurs, like, we got to foster that. We got to work together, right?
Absolutely. And so when I think about, why people end up leaving, for example, Cleveland and going to Miami and New York and Oakland, and a lot of it has to do with the density and connections, where doors can be open, conversations can be had. Whereas, if you live in a place where it's a little bit more, like, disconnected, opportunities don't flow, and, like, the connections, the business development doesn't happen the same way. So the thought behind Tastemakers, and just a lot of the other work that I've done, is if we can put community at the center of the conversation and getting the, enough like-minded individuals doing, like, really awesome things together, then you create opportunities organically, and I think, I would hope that, as that organization continues to grow and do what it needs to do, more of those opportunities can, take place in the people that are from the community.
That sounds good. I think, like, being the black sheep, right? So I'm the youngest of four. I have three older sisters, and two of the three all went to Baldwin Wallace, right? One bachelor's in psychology. Say it again.
I said Yellow Jackets.
Shout out to Janita Baldwin Wallace with Yellow Jackets as well. But one got a bachelor's in psychology. The other has a bachelor's in science, right? Biology. But they were looking at me like, what you about to, what we doing here? It's like, if y'all banking on me, following in these footsteps, it's not going to happen. But I can remember trying to have my parents' books that I was reading, right? Like, hey, you want to understand me more? My mom said, like, check out this book. It was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but it was also a book called Rich Kid, Smart Kid. Mm-hmm. Basically saying, how do you develop a kid who has these entrepreneurial dreams, right? Now, the support was there, but they didn't understand, like, all right, yeah, he going rogue, man. He about to fall hard, but little did they know, like, nah, this is real. It's a real passion. It's a real journey. I'm studying. I didn't take the traditional college route, but I was always educating myself behind the scenes. But I think, to your point, in dealing with the younger generation and seeing the disconnect in our culture of how do you go from here to here, right? I think entrepreneurship is trendy, but how do we really take those real steps to develop real business, right? And I think your role at JumpStart is pivotal, because those kids become adults, right? So how do you then backtrack to give them the education that they might not have had, right, coming up?
Yeah. What I'm seeing now is there's definitely a mindset and shift that is not, I don't know, really it's not really cultivated in our pool of entrepreneurs. Like in our pool of entrepreneurs, I see, I mean, it happens for everybody, no matter what color you are or what you look like, but I see, like, particularly in our communities, it's, you know, how much money you're bringing in and how much you're paying yourself.
Yep.
And that is different than, you know, how much is the value of this company, and is it even sellable? And I'm not saying, you know, like, hey, just be building companies and selling them, but that honestly is how people make wealth. Yeah. You know, that is how wealth is created by assets.
Yeah, but even in, you know, the mindset of build to sell, right? Sometimes we go past our prime, because when we get that large contract and we roll it, that's when it's time to sell. Not once all your customers then parted ways from you. Look like, you know what, I'm down to my last customer. Let me see if I can sell this thing.
It's literally like the stock market or any kind of market.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I feel like our concepts of how markets work, we're just like, the older I get, the more I'm like, man, how did I not know that they were talking about this, you know? And it's like, I, you know, like you have to take it upon myself to be extra diligent and proactive about, you know, really understanding things that no one in my family understood. You know, nobody in my immediate circle understood, and at the same time being an advocate and open up doors too.
Did you have any entrepreneurs in your family?
You know, I did. So my grandfather, he owned a corner store in Cleveland, in East Cleveland. And that was like my only conception of like entrepreneur, like for real, you know? And it wasn't something that it was like, oh my God, like, that's what I want to do. But it did open my mind up to, you know, like, he literally, he owned this thing and made his own schedule. But other than that, again, that company, it was, I think, I forgot what happened to it, but you know, East Cleveland got bought up, and it just all just started to deteriorate and whatnot. And again, it was like the value that company brought over, you know, the decades that it was in existence, it served its time, but it wasn't like the family was able to reap anything from all of, you know, the years of work that my grandfather put in.
It wasn't built for sustainability, right? But I'm happy you touched on something important. So you talk about the lifestyle business versus, you know, building business for the long term. But I think that's in our culture, when we do come across business owners and entrepreneurs, we want the lifestyle, right? We want it to look good. We want it to look pretty. We want to look good. How do you train or teach entrepreneurs to, hey, this is cool, right? You can get the cars, the houses, the gold. How do you tell them, all right, this is how we start to build a sustainable business that you can then sell and create generational wealth for your family?
Yeah, I think, I think it starts with like taking a couple of steps back and thinking about explaining what is a lifestyle business versus what is an asset business, you know? And so like, when I think of a lifestyle business, I think of something that you genuinely enjoy doing, or maybe I wouldn't. I mean, if you don't enjoy doing anything, you know what I mean? Like but you have some joy in what you're doing, and it is able to create the income that you want to sustain your life. Like, it is your cash flow. Like, that's how I think of a lifestyle business. It is something that can pay you to live the way that you want to live.
For sure.
And that could be, you know, having, like, you know, doing special creative services. That could be putting yourself out there to do social media, being an influencer. Like, these are entrepreneurs that are having lifestyle businesses, which is great. Like, your streamers, people that are generating revenue, like if you physically are the key to your business,
right.
and your business cannot exist without you, it is a lifestyle business.
Or listen, I'll take it
You know?
even a step further, right? Self-employed, right? We talk about same author that wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, talk about the cash flow quadrant, right?
Yeah.
Business owner, investor, employee, self-employed. He talk about the self-employed taking on the same risk as a business owner, but not necessarily reaping the same rewards, right?
100% too. So, I mean, it could be like a business, but like, let's say, you know, you're a consultant and you are the consultant in your consultant firm. You are self-employed, which meaning you have a W-2 job. You have a job. I mean, maybe not a W-2 job. There's different, you know, legal entity structures, but you have a job and you are working for your business. When the difference between those types of lifestyle businesses and I would say an asset-based business or being a business owner is that at some point in time, you can be removed from the equation and the business continues to operate. Yeah, and you have ownership of that thing.
Absolutely.
That is an asset. Like you have ownership
Talk
of
to him, man. Y'all ain't hear this game, man.
I mean,
talk to him.
Yeah, and so it's like to create, you know, let's go back to that consultant. For that consultant to elevate from being self-employed to having an asset which they own is they have generated enough business where they are now hiring consultants under them. They're growing their book of business. And they have the opportunity, you know, at any point in time, if the operations are sustainable, to say, you know what? Like this is great. I don't have to do anything anymore.
No
and you know,
stress.
and you know, you have the opportunity to say, like, hey, other consulting firm, I've grown this entity. Would you like to buy it for X amount of millions of dollars?
Or can I buy your firm?
Can I buy your firm
Absolutely.
to grow my platform, all of my services? It really starts with what are your motivations for being an entrepreneur? Like, let's just start there. You know what I mean? Like, and it is so helpful. I mean, I feel like if you can't keep it real with yourself,
absolutely.
you can't keep it real with nobody. You know what I mean?
And that authenticity shows, right? If you can't fool with it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So there's that, and you know, if like, so I think one first starts with like, what are your motivations for it? Being really clear in that, and then aligning your you know, your motivations, your passion, or whatever with the best routes to arrive to that. And so, and then educating yourself on what are the routes, you know? If for example, if, you know, someone has big ideas and their motivation is really to create an innovative new way that's going to do something that's really going to disrupt an industry, like, to me, that sounds like, you know, a venture, potentially a venture capital like type of approach where it's like you're thinking beyond boxes and you're going to have to like really forecast and see, you know, what future industries and markets are going to need and really involve yourself in the right research, put together the right team to help, you know, validate like whatever it is, maybe get a MVP off of the ground, then think about raising capital. And that's totally different than, you know what, I just want to have the flexible freedom of like working anywhere I want and having the money to do it. And that could be very much a lifestyle business that, you know, so I think it first starts really with what your motivation is and then mapping out what is the right business model or business to get you there. You know what I mean? That's where I would start. And education around that.
Yeah,
I
no,
love that.
go ahead,
And I
Janine.
love how you're just like making decisions.
So I want to take this in so many different directions. You're dropping so many gems, but can you real quick just explain what FELOH and Tastemakers is for our audience?
Oh, absolutely. So the way that I will call, so FELOH stands for Everyone's Love of Hair and Beauty.
Okay.
And the way that I would communicate it is it's a marketing ecosystem for independently owned beauty brands to connect with a large, diverse database of beauty lovers. And the goal with this platform is to, again, empower those independent brands to grow, scale, get their message, product, whatever it is out there to people that know that they want to buy and support.
Now, is this to individuals or is this to the retail market?
So there's different layers and levels. So at its core, to individuals.
Okay.
So it's a B2B, 2C marketplace. So that's how I will call FELOH. The brands that we work with, they can access different levels of engagement in our marketing ecosystem. So whether that's selling in our marketplace, being on the social platform, popping up at in-person experiences, or us marketing them through like our newsletter or like other communications. Those are different touch points in our ecosystem. And then for the beauty lovers, the beauty enthusiasts, what we started to do, and I can still see like how this can play out into the future, but still like learning what this could be. But what we started to do was get really good data and insights from all of our different community members. So whether that be you showed up at one of our events, you downloaded the app, you filled out like our newsletter listserv, whatever, we're getting like insights on what's your hair texture, like what are your skin concerns, where do you usually shop. And so this goes back to the public health part of me.
Yeah.
Because I saw the power of data sets and longitudinal data sets, and now, like, especially with the power of AI, all of these AI models are being trained on data, and generative AI requires some kind of human input. And so now I'm like, well, we're starting to get all of this information on all of these, melanated individuals, like, and not just like, oh, this person is black, but this is a Afro-Latina, or this is like a black person of Caribbean descent. And there's all of these different nuances in consumer culture that we're starting to be able to like gather and speak to. So, we'll see how the data set continues to grow.
I want to talk about AI, but I want to just can you give us the same rundown
for
on
Tastemakers? Yes. So Tastemakers United. So that is a 501c3 nonprofit. Okay. So it is a nonprofit designed to amplify and uplift the tastemakers of culture, which we know who those people are. Yeah. And the idea is to essentially build community through hosting events, hiring tastemakers from the community to activate at those events. Yeah. And then if they're, let's say a entrepreneur, an artist launching something, a writer launching a book, we want to ultimately be able to say, we built this community so we can share whatever it is that you're doing, so we can collaborate on hosting something, we can get it out through our listserv, all that good stuff.
So I asked that for a reason, right? I see the similarities in the foundation of the thought processes of the business, right? They're both kind of geared towards community, right? Were you able to intertwine those two businesses to where they could kind of make money together in a sense? Yeah,
so we actually, that's so crazy. So FELOH actually helped launch Tastemakers. So back in 2022, when Tastemakers was just starting out, I knew for FELOH we wanted to host an event. Like, we wanted to do something real swanky on a rooftop, and was like, okay, can this be a launch pad for Tastemakers to get its name out there as a curator and convener of people, while FELOH can bring the beauty aspects, swag bags, the topic and the conversation, and Tastemakers can be the promoter, the curator, find the different,
Man, that's genius.
Yeah, and so it ended up working out really, really well. So that was our inaugural event, Crown Day. And since then, we've, had that event multiple times over the years, and Tastemakers has been a collaborator. But that is how I envision the Tastemaker entity being able to serve other startup founders.
Right.
Really do.
One thing one of my mentors told me a long time ago, he was like, look, write down everything. he say document it, because you'll remember certain things, but you won't remember how you felt in these moments and how you navigated through these moments.
100%. You know, I started, I've always been a journaler. Not, you know, like consistently, but like I have journals back from when I was like 9.
Oh, yeah.
And then there'll be a gap of time, and then I was like 20. And I'm like reading back on like, I was really like writing about stuff, you know, and I'm like really like reliving these experiences. And it does, to your point, James, reflect back to you like, I really made it through some stuff.
I was stressed, right?
Yeah, and I'm like, Camille in 4th grade, what was happening?
Right,
you know?
right.
Like, what was you doing?
We kind of followed a similar model, right? So we
Mhm.
have, of course, Immaculate Management Group,
Yeah.
the Soapbox Hustle, and Immaculate Foundation, which is our 501c3, right?
Nice.
But using all platforms to feed all platforms, right? It was the vision behind it, and I think that we, you know, starting to see it come to life. But yeah, excuse me, I want to, before time is up, kind of dive into your role at JumpStart, Director of High Growth Services. How does one contact Camille to engage in these services, and what are some of your clientele look like?
Absolutely. So, I would say, okay, let me just kind of back it up a little bit on high growth services. So one thing that JumpStart, you know, did not historically do was work in what I would call the super lower middle market, as far as businesses. And so a lot of the economic development organizations, you know, that we might encounter are, you know, serving
Startup.
Yeah, startups that are like on that venture capital route. Then there are definitely some that are working with small businesses, but there's also like the companies that have been around for, you know, like 5, 10, maybe 15 plus, you know, years that have grown, that may have become a little bit stagnant, or maybe that are in the earlier stages and within that 5-year, 6-year mark, and they want to grow, but they're not really positioned for the venture capital conversation, because they're not, you know, the sexy AI startup, but they're still like a good solid business. And you know, one thing that I was tasked with in this role is how do we create services that really support that middle company that, you know, could really grow to be a strong middle market company that does have that transferable value. Yeah, and so what I piloted was a program that really catered to that market.
Bridge to bankability?
Yep. So Bridge to Bankability, which soon to be rebranded as Growth Accelerate. But we essentially said, okay, what are the core pain points that, you know, business owners that are already generating revenue and that really want to grow and scale are hitting for them to really get the scale that they need.
Yep.
And what we kept coming down to was creating sustainable operations, like creating, diversifying your customer base, removing the owner from all of the operations, and you know, yes, exactly. And all of these things, they take time, but they're important to do. Yeah.
And I want people to really like understand how important your role is, right? Because we experience, right, being on the island. I talk about this often, being on the island by ourselves, right? We experienced a lot of success, a lot of growth. We were a business that, you know, started from nothing. We surpassed 7 figures in revenue, and then I feel like we were alone, right? We weren't quite viewed as bankable because of, you know, we didn't have the right systems in place. So we almost, the whole term of growing yourself out of business, we could have done just that in that moment, right? So for you to come along with this program for entrepreneurs like myself, I think it's extremely impactful and needed, right, to help entrepreneurs grow past a certain point. I say that to say, what are some of your biggest success stories in that space that, like, just a proud moment for you?
Got you. Yeah. So, I mean, it's still, the journey is still being written because, like, it's still relatively fresh. But I would say some of the proud moments have been really helping these companies be able to communicate their story in numbers. And so, you know,
Numbers tell a story.
Yeah, numbers tell a story. And a lot of times, I definitely was that entrepreneur where it's like, this spreadsheet, I don't know, I'm fighting for my life in Excel, but to be able to see like some of the business owners that, we've worked with be empowered to say, you know what, I understand this now, or I understand enough where I can have confidence in explaining why this did not go well this month. You know what I mean? As opposed to like, it was just a whole bunch of like, no, like this expenses, you can really track it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I feel like those were like some of those small wins that I know will turn into larger wins, when the time is right. But then also too, a lot of our business owners, they're breaking into new distribution channels. Some of them are heavily in conversations with raising capital now too. So just seeing that is like, yes. Yeah. I would say there's one, knowing the different types of money that are available is really important. There's grant funding, there's debt funding, there's equity funding. And knowing what type of business or whatever business idea that you have, which funding
is the best option.
Is the best option for you. Now, I will be completely honest. If your company, like from day one, there's like two different big, models out here. One model is, it's going to take a lot to get it off of the ground, but once it's off of the ground, it can grow, scale quickly, and have a lot of, monetary, benefit and turnaround. That is what we would call like a venture capital type of startup. And usually those, big idea, industry disruptors, whatever those things are that you might not be making money like on immediate day one, and it's going to take it some time to get it, but once it starts making money, the value is there. A lot of them initially get their funding from friends and family, and that is the honest truth. Like the relationships that got a couple 100,000, sometimes millions in that bag to fail forward. And, oftentimes in like our communities and circles, that's not a reality. So my best recommendation as it relates to going down that path is do as much as you can to validate your concept idea, get a working prototype out there, find ways to, as quickly as you can generate dollars under this, very small prototype. And now with the power of like AI, it is really easy to mock up some like, you know what I mean? Absolutely. It ain't the same game we was talking about 10 years ago, for real.
For sure.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can really put together a compelling concept to pitch investors. Now, I would say the investor market right now is, a lot of them are sitting on funds where companies are not exiting as quickly. And so the replenishment of money out in the market to do more investments is not as robust as it was, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So there's just a lot of economics that are affecting the ability to access that type of, all capital, but that type of capital. Now, if you have a business concept where, it's not, you're not like doing rocket science. You're not like shaking up a whole industry, but you can make some money like relatively quickly from getting customers into the door and like paying customers into the door. I would strongly consider, what does debt look like? And there are some, I would say debt vehicles out there that can be very attractive to early starting business owners. So you have, the traditional SBA loans. Now with the government shutdown, you know what I mean? There's just all of these different things are being affected on that type of capital. But there are some debt capital out there that could be very compelling for that. And then grants. Now I will say, applying to grants is a task within itself. The grant market is also being heavily affected by, the greater market. So it's not as much capital dollars that are out there in the realm of grants. But, you know, if you come across something, I mean, put your name in the hat. I'm never going to say not do that. So, yeah.
Camille, if you could tell the business owners watching this video right now some advice, say a lot of people you find, what is that space, what is that issue they keep coming up to? What can you speak to them to help them move past whatever that issue is for them?
Access to funding, I know.
Access to funding is probably always going to be one of them, but even before access to funding, how much money do you really need, and what does that money mean for your business?
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So, like, understanding, like, how much money you need and how far will that money get you. I think that's one. Another one I would say is the owner versus operator mentality.
Okay.
So we talked about that a little bit, but you know, when you're in the process of growing a business, you're going to be wearing the operator hat. You're going to be working in that business, and you're going to be working on that business. But you have to remember to work on your business. And working on your business means working to create value in this entity. Like, real quick, I would say if you have a house and you're working on your house to make it, you know, rise in value, you might be strategically working on renovations in, you know, in different areas. You might be doing it, you might have a contractor doing it, but you're investing in the house, you know what I mean? And then lastly, I would say, and one more area, you know, having the community around you of peers, really.
Just having a support system.
Yeah, like having a support system, because business ownership, entrepreneurship, there's going to be ups and downs, and like sometimes it really be feeling like more downs than ups, you know?
For sure.
But having, you know, people that you trust and people that can, you know, support you through those ebbs and flows is going to help keep, you know, your internal motivation where it should be.
Yeah. And not only are you solving these problems via your role at JumpStart as being Director of High Growth Services, but also through your platform at Tastemakers, right?
Yeah.
It's a community of people. If you need the funding, come see her at JumpStart. You need the beauty products, go see her at FELOH. we got to have you back on for sure, right? Because the knowledge that you've acquired, right? The experience of being in the field, working firsthand with business owners, is things that we can't, you know, tap in one setting, but I definitely, you know, appreciate your time today. Appreciate you, you know, making yourself available to us, dropping the gems that you drop. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah. So tap in with me definitely on LinkedIn. If you don't have one, y'all better
Talk to you. Look, the first step number one, get you a LinkedIn. Stay off of IG.
I mean, I'm not gonna say stay off of it, but I am gonna say, you know, like definitely tap in on LinkedIn. So I'm Camille Heard on LinkedIn.
Camille Heard on LinkedIn.
Yep, and then also Instagram too. You know, hit me on Instagram. I'm not as active as I am on LinkedIn, but and then catch me out in the community.
Tastemakers events.
Yeah,
how can they be notified about upcoming events?
Absolutely. So follow the Tastemakers United Instagram. So Tastemakers United on Instagram. You can also go to the website tastemakersunited.org and sign up to be on our listserv, and that'll put you in the loop of everything too.
Words.
Thank you, Camille. So happy we got to sit down in the flesh. Thank you for your knowledge, and for sure can't wait to have you back on.
And our audience, man. We strategically start targeting a certain group of people, and I think there's some alignment with the audience or the demographics that you targeted with Tastemakers and FELOH. So we all you know, in alignment. We all on the same page. So again, man, I you know, appreciate it. If you need anything from us, please feel free to let us know. But this has been another great episode of the Soapbox Hustle Podcast with Camille Heard. Catch you on the next one.